Today's topic is object-oriented programming, or in short, it is called as OOPS. It is the most important topic from an interview perspective, and questions around OOPS concepts are definitely asked in each and every C-sharp interview. You can say this is the interviewer's favorite topic, and they definitely ask question around it. So today we'll discuss about the following area. First of all, we'll discuss about the object-oriented programming concept in general, like what are the object-oriented programming concept. Then we'll discuss about the access modifiers like public, private, protected, and protected internal. We'll discuss about constructor and destructor, like where constructors are used, what they are doing, what are the purpose of constructor, and similarly, we'll discuss about destructor as well. We'll discuss about inheritance, method and method parameters, and finally, we'll discuss about method overloading and method overriding. So let's start with the first topic, that is object-oriented programming concept. So what do you mean by object-oriented programming? This question can be asked in a different format. Explain OOPS, or explain the concept of OOPS, or what do you mean by object-oriented programming? All these questions can be asked interchangeably in an interview, and the answer of all the question would be same. So let's first understand what do you mean by OOPS or why it is useful. So OOPS is basically design philosophy that uses different set of programming languages than old procedural programming language like C, Pascal, etc. So in the earlier days, we were having a different programming language like C and Pascal, and they were using some different programming concept. OOPS is a philosophy that is a different from those programming languages. The primary purpose of object-oriented programming is to increase the flexibility and maintainability of a program. So in simple terms, we can say that object-oriented programming is a type of programming that uses object and classes to organize code. The main purpose of organizing code to increase the flexibility of it, and it would be so that it would be easy to maintain. The OOPS are divided into four different categories. The first one is an abstraction. The second is encapsulation. Third is inheritance. And fourth is polymorphism. Now, please pay attention toward these four topics. These four topics are the major building block of OOPS. An interviewer can ask, like, what are the building blocks of OOPS? Or what are the principles of OOPS? So the answer would be, there are four principles of OOPS. First is abstraction, then encapsulation, then inheritance, and then polymorphism. We'll discuss these concepts one by one in an upcoming slide. So let's start with abstraction first. So how do you define abstraction, or what do you mean by abstraction? It is a mechanism to provide details about the essential feature without describing the background details. For example, when you log into a website, you enter user ID and password, which is the essential information for login. Here you don't know about the background details like what happened with your user ID and password and how it gets verified. So in simple terms, let's try to understand the concept of abstraction in a plain English. You can say that it is a way in which we only display the essential features to a user and we hide the background details that is happening behind the scenes. As an example, you can say that whenever you go to a particular website, you punch in your credentials like username and password, and a series of events happen behind the scenes. And if you have provided the valid details, then you are navigated back to the website or you are logged inside it. In this particular point of time, you are not sure how your authentication is checked, what exactly is doing, how things are tied up together. The only thing that you are aware of that yes, my credentials are correct and I am able to log in the website. In a simple definition or in a definition, we can take an example of a calculator as well. Suppose in a calculator, you provide two inputs, let's say number 2 and number 4, and you want to multiply both of them. That is 2 into 4. The answer is 8. Now you know maths, then you know mathematics, so you know that the 2 into 4 equals to 8. But for a computer or for a calculator, a code has been written inside it. What exactly that code is doing that you are unaware of. You are only dealing with the output of the response, and that is called as abstraction. This question is definitely asked in an OOPS interview, and that would be the first question, like how do you define abstraction? So you can give both the examples. If you want, you can give the examples of calculator that you can just only display the valid information to the user and we just hide everything from him. We can also give an example like the website, like we enter the credentials and then some events happen behind the scenes and we are able to log into the application. So this is how abstraction works in a C# programming language, or in general, it's an OOPS concept. In C#, you can define abstraction using abstract class and interfaces. So what do you mean by abstract class and what do you mean by interface? Again, this is a very important question from an interview perspective. You can get this question in different format, like explain the difference between abstract class and interfaces. So we will discuss this abstract class interfaces in an upcoming slide, but at this particular point of time, you can say that abstraction is a process in which we hide the information from the user and we only display the result to it. And in C#, abstraction can be done using abstract classes and interfaces. How to implement abstraction using abstract classes? Now again, this question can be rephrased into a different format, like explain the concept of abstraction using abstract class. So let's understand this with the help of a pseudocode. Here we created a class named as shape. Please note that we have decorated or prefixed the class with a specific keyword, that is an abstract keyword. You must have seen this keyword in your program, but from this point of time, let's try to understand what do you mean by abstract. And then inside this class, we have a method, public abstract void draw, and then public void display area. Can you see a difference between these two methods? There is some difference in it. The first method, that is public abstract void draw, does not have any body, whereas this public void display area is having a body where it is displaying some kind of line on the UI, or you can say it's printing something on the UI. So what does that mean? Why a method with abstract keyword does not have a body? So this is called as abstraction. Whenever you decorate your method with an abstract keyword, you are not allowed to implement its implementation. You can only define the signature of a method and its implementation will be dealt by something else or maybe some other program. This is what we have learned in our previous slide with abstraction. We learned that it is a process in which we only deal with the output and we just ignore the background scenes or the things that run behind the background. Similarly, over here as well, we have just defined a method as draw and we have not defined its implementation. Whereas in the next method, where there is no abstract keyword, we have defined its implementation as well. Now let's understand how we can implement this draw method. So as of now, this is a concept of inheritance where we have inherit a shape class and we have where shape is a base class and circle is a derived class. We will discuss about inheritance in later stage, but as of now you can see or you can say that shape is a base class, which is an abstract class as well. Now in the circle, we can use word override to provide the implementation of our draw method. The draw method, which was defined as abstract method in the base class, its implementation is provided in the derived class. And in order to provide this implementation, we have to use an override method. Now here we have discussed a couple of points which again I want to rephrase or repeat over here. First of all, in order to make a class as abstract, you have to decorate the class as abstract keyword. Similarly, in order to make a method as abstract, you have to use that method as an abstract keyword. Whenever you assign or decorate or prefix any method with abstract keyword, you cannot give its implementation. You can only give its signature. The implementation would be done in the derived class. A question can be asked like, can we make an abstract class as a base class? The answer is yes, because here you can see that we are creating an abstract class as shape and we are using that shape class as a base class. So definitely an abstract class can be a base class. Our next question can be asked, does abstract class contain an abstract method? The answer is yes. An abstract class can contain an abstract method. We have already demonstrated that with this one. So this public abstract void draw is an abstract method and it does not contain any implementation. Our next question can be asked, does abstract class contain a non-abstract method? Again, the answer is yes, because you can see over here as well. In this abstract class shape, we have declared or created a non-abstract method as a display area. So these questions can be asked in a C# interview about the abstract classes. Now let's get further about its implementation. So here we are inheriting the shape class, which is the abstract class, in a circle class. And here we are overriding the draw method. Our next question can be asked, how can we implement the abstract method in a child class? So you can say we can implement the abstract method in a child class using an override keyword. This override simply means that it will override a definition that is written there in the base class. And in this draw method, we are just printing a console statement that is drawing a circle. So let's try to understand how the output will be there when we use these methods into a separate caller class. So we have created a caller class name as program, and there is a static void main method. Here we have created an object of a circle class using circle is a new circle. So this is a way when we create an object of it, and now we call circle.draw. Whenever this line executes, the compiler will come into this particular class and it will find a draw method. It get inside this draw method and it would be call this one and will print a statement like drawing a circle. And again, there would be method name as circle.displayArea. Now, since this circle.displayArea is not available inside the circle class, but it is available inside the base class, that is shape class. So in that case as well, we would be able to call this circle.displayArea. When these three lines of code execute, first of all, in a draw method, it will go into the circle class and will print the statement over there, and then come to the display area method, and it will go inside the abstract class and display the area of it. The output of this program is like this. So in the first statement, it's drawing a circle, which is coming from this statement, that is from the circle class. The second statement is area calculation logic here, which is coming from this statement that is in a shape class. So you can see the how abstract class work in a C# and why how they are used. I hope you are now able to understand what is abstract keyword and what is abstract class. Let's move to the next topic, that is how do we implement an abstraction using an interface. Like in the previous slide, we have implemented abstraction using a classes, that is a shape class. But in the next slide, we will understand how we can implement abstraction using interfaces. So in order to implement abstraction using interface, again, we have to declare or create an interface over here. For this example perspective, we create an interface named as iDrawable, and this interface contains a method that is a void draw. Again, you can see that it only contains a definition. There is no implementation of this method. Now in this circle class, we are inheriting this iDrawable interface and we are implementing the exact method over here in this draw section. So whatsoever method or signature that we have declared in the interface, its implementation would be in the derived class. And this interface will become as a base interface. Again, let's try to understand what will be the output of this statement. So whenever we create a new circle object, and whenever we call circle.draw, it will go inside this and will call this method and will display the output on the UI, that is drawing a circle. The output of this statement is again, as I just mentioned, it would be a drawing a circle. So now here comes the second topic. We have discussed abstract classes, we have discussed interfaces. Now here comes a very important topic or very important question for an interviewer. What is the difference between interface and abstract classes? Here you can see that both the interface and abstract classes are performing the same thing. Then how they are different? This question is asked in multiple times in a C# interview. And again, if you appear yourself in an C# interview, definitely you will find this question. Explain the difference between an interface and an abstract classes. So you can say in this way that an abstract classes are defined by an abstract keyword, whereas there is no foundation of defining an abstract interface using an abstract keyword. The next difference is that an abstract class can contain an abstract and a non-abstract method. Remember, we have seen this in the past slide where there was an abstract method that is draw, and there was a non-abstract method as well that is display area. So an abstract class can contain an abstract or non-abstract method, which is not possible in case of interface. The third difference is that an abstract class can contain a method definition as well. So remember, we have written a code over here that is display area, and whenever a display area is called, we are printing area calculation logic here. So an abstract class can contain an abstract and non-abstract method, and it can also have method definition. This statement is wrong or false in case of interface. An interface can only contains a signature. It does not contain any of its implementation. Likewise here. The interface only contain a signature of it, that is void draw, but there is no such implementation inside this interface, and the implementation will be done in the calling class or derived class only. From this point of view or from this topic, you can have multiple questions that we have discussed so far. Our next topic is encapsulation. So question can be asked in this way, like what do you mean by encapsulation? Explain the concept of encapsulation, or even they can ask like what is the difference between abstraction and encapsulation. These things can be asked interchangeably, but in order to understand the difference between abstraction and encapsulation, first of all, we have to learn what encapsulation means. So let's get started. Encapsulation is a mechanism of binding object state, that is field, and behavior, that is method, together into a single unit. The encapsulation is mainly achieved by creating classes. The class is a kind of container or capsule which encapsulate the set of fields on method. Now, what does that mean? So you can simply say that it is a process in which we hide the object state, that is field, and the behavior, that is method, inside a single class. The class acts like a container. In other words, you can say encapsulation describes bundling of data and method that work on that data within one unit, that is class. So far you have seen that in encapsulation we are creating a classes. This concept is quite similar to abstraction, but the way they behave is different. So in abstraction as well, we were only displaying the relevant details to user, and we were hiding all the underlying things. Like in an example of calculator where we were performing 2 into 4, we were only concerned about the output, like what is the output of 2 into 4, that is 8. And we just hide everything from the user, like what exactly they are doing behind the scenes to perform that calculation. That is called abstraction. In a similar way, in encapsulation, we do the same thing, but that is done mainly with the help of classes. We create a class, we create an object state or field inside that class, and then we hide its implementation, like how the classes and how the methods are work together. We hide everything from there. So this is called as encapsulation. So in this diagram, you can see that we have field and we have methods, and all of them became a class. And class is the only thing that is exposed to the outer world. A user can only access the class object, and with that class object, a fields and method could be accessed. Again, there is a concept of access modifier, which we'll discuss later. But as of now, you can simply say that encapsulation consists a way in which we bind the class and object together into a single unit. Let's understand this with the help of a pseudocode and right. How to implement encapsulation in C#. So you can see that where we have written there is a pseudocode. Let's understand this, what exactly is doing. So we have created a class named as program, and there is another class named as person in static void main method. This person object is created on that person class, and we are using few methods inside person class like set age equals to name, set age equals to 30. So this person class object consists of two methods. One is set name and another is set age. As of now, we are not sure what exactly these methods are doing, but yes, we know that set name from the name from its name, it might be setting a name, and when we say set age, it might be setting a age. It might be possible that while doing a set age, it might be performing some kind of manipulation that the age should be greater than 18, which we are not sure. So that's why we can say that we are using a class to do the bundling of all its method and field inside it. In a similar way, we do have another method like person.getName and person.getAge. Again, we are retrieving this current name of the person and current age of the person. So this is how this encapsulation works. The output of this method would be the output, the name would be Alice because we are setting the name of the person as Alice, and its age would be 30 because we are setting it over here. So I hope this clear your doubt about encapsulation, and now you can answer the question like what is encapsulation and what is the difference between abstraction and encapsulation. Please bear in mind that the question like what is the difference between abstraction and encapsulation is widely used and widely asked in any Shisha programming interview. So please learn this or please pay attention towards this topic. Our next topic is inheritance. So far we have discussed about abstraction, we have discussed about encapsulation, which are the two building blocks in an OPS concept. The third building block is inheritance. So what is inheritance in C Sharp, or explain inheritance? It is a mechanism of acquiring the features and behavior of a class by another class. So you can see that inheritance, the two classes comes into a picture where the first class can acquire the feature and behavior of a second class. The class whose members are inherited are termed as a base class, and the class that inherit those members are called as derived class. Now these two comes as a new term to you, like what is base class and what is derived class. We'll discuss this, but first of all, let's understand inheritance in basic terms. So you must have known or you must have seen that we have inherited some properties from our ancestor or from our parents, like their skin color, their hair texture, their eyes. There are some traits in our parents which automatically comes to us. So this is called as inheritance in programming world. Now let's come to C sharp topic, like what is the base class and what is the derived. To understand this, let's have a flow diagram, or let's say a diagram over here. So we have two classes, class A and class B. Class A is termed as a parent class and class B is termed as a child class. Remember, now we have used like parent and child, but they can also be termed as a base class and a derived class. The parent class is called as a base class and the child class is called as a derived class. How the inheritance is done in C sharp, or write a pseudocode to have an inheritance in a C sharp. This question can be asked. So let me tell you how can we implement inheritance in a C sharp programming language. So here you can see that we have created our two classes. The first is class vehicle and the second is class car. Class vehicle is the base class, or it is a parent class, and class car is a derived class, or it is called a child class. In order to do an inheritance of two classes, we have to use a special symbol, that is colon. So when you write a colon between two classes, that is car and vehicle in this scenario, the class name that is written to the right side of colon is called as base class or parent class. The class name is written inside the left of the colon is called as derived class or child class. So whatsoever properties of this base class have, the public properties, that would be derived in the child class as well. Like I will discuss about the access modifier like public, private and coming slides. But as of now, you can say that this child class car can inherit the properties of a base class. Now let's discuss what we have declared in base class so far. In the base class, we do have a field named as brand and its value is Honda and it's of a string type. In base class, we do have another thing like a method which is called as honk, and this method is printing something in the console. In derived class, that is in car class, we have again declared a field that is model name and Honda City. So when we create an object of a derived class that is car, we can take the properties of base class as well, like the brand and the honk that is defined in the base class can be called in the child class, and once that is done, it will go inside the base class and call its method only. So there is no need of writing these method again and again in derived class as well. We have done this base class and the derived class object would be able to pick it up from there. So this concept is called as inheritance and it's a widely asked question in an C# interview. So I hope you now are able to understand the concept of inheritance, like what it exactly means at the first place. And second, how can we implement it in C# programming language? Now let's move to our next topic, that is polymorphism, and it's the fourth building block in an OOPS concept. So what do you understand by polymorphism? It's the ability to behave in multiple ways. So in the name itself, you can say a polymorphism is built up of two forms, or its name consists of two things. One is poly, another is morphism. In simple English, poly means multiple. So in programming world, a polymorphism is an ability of an object to behave in multiple ways. For example, a smartphone is a single object, but it can be used to make call, listen music, sending email, taking pictures, etc. So from this example, you can see that a single smartphone can behave in multiple ways depending upon the situation that we have used. If we are making a call, then it's is used to make a call. When we are in a travel and we are listening something, then it's used to listen to music. The same smartphone can also be used to send emails and taking pictures as well. So this concept in general is called as polymorphism. Again, from C# perspective, you can ask like explain or write down a code to implement a polymorphism, or write down a code to let us know what exactly you understand by polymorphism. So in this case, you can write down a code how it's work. Suppose you declared a two method that is add, and it consists parameters as integer a and integer b, and that add method is just adding these two methods. We can again create a separate method that is named as add again, but this time this consists of three parameters instead of two, that is int a, int b, and int c. So you have seen that we are using add method in both the places. In the first place, it only consists of two methods or two parameters. The second place it consists of three parameters. So these concept where we can pass multiple parameters and the method name remain as add is called as polymorphism. In C# programming world, a polymorphism is having of two types, and this can be asked in an interview in a different format, like what are the different types of polymorphism? So the answer is there are two types of polymorphism. One is static polymorphism, another is dynamic polymorphism. They are also called in a different way as well. So they can be termed as method overloading and operator overloading and method overriding. So the example that I gave to you, like addition example, where we are passing two or three parameters to a same method definition, that is called as method overloading. And method overriding is done with the help of base classes and child classes using virtual and override keyword. So again, this can be asked a question like how can you implement a dynamic polymorphism, or how can we implement a method overriding? So the answer is a dynamic polymorphism can be implemented based on the base class and a child class, or a parent class or a child class, and this is done with the help of a virtual and an override keyword. I hope this clear your concepts of polymorphism. And again, this is the last building block of an OOPS concept. And this is very much asked in a C# interview. Like all those topics which we discussed so far, like abstraction, encapsulation, inheritance, and polymorphism, They are definitely asked in a Shisha programming interview. So please understand these concepts thoroughly and please pay attention towards it. In the previous slide, we have discussed about the polymorphism types. So in this slide, we are just summarizing it. A polymorphism can be defined in two types. First is compile type polymorphism, also known as overloading, and the runtime polymorphism, also known as overriding. I have already explained you the concept of overloading, where we were creating a same method name, that is add, and we were passing different parameters in different situation. Similarly, the runtime polymorphism or overriding can be achieved using the base class and derived classes, and we have to use the virtual and override keyword in order to implement the runtime polymorphism. Now let's move to our next topic in this series, and that is class. So what do you mean by class? We have already discovered this class when we were discussing about encapsulation, but let us now discuss the class thing in detail. What is a class? A class is a user-defined data structure that consists data member like field and properties and member function like method, constructor, and destructor. So we have already discussed about field and properties in our previous series, and we already discussed about the methods in previous slide. I will leave constructor and destructor as of now because we have covered these things in detail in upcoming slide. So you can say a class is a data structure that consists of all these data members. It is a reference type and it acts as a template for an object. Now please pay attention to this particular word, a reference type. You must have across this word in the previous series when we were discussing about data type. Like integer is the value type and string is a reference type. On a similar note, a class is also a reference type. That is, in terms of memory allocation, it is allocated on a heap. This can be an interview question like, what is a class? It's a value type or a reference type? The answer is class is a reference type. Now let's understand how can we create a class with the help of a pseudocode. So here we have created a class as public class person, where public is the access modifier, which we'll cover later on. Then we have defined two properties, that is first name and last name. Again, this is a constructor which we'll discuss in upcoming slide, like how constructor work. But as of now, you can see that the constructor name and class name is similar. And this is the convention. So whatsoever is the constructor name, the same name should be of the class name as well. You cannot interchange that, or you cannot use something as a class name and use another thing as a person as a constructor name. They both should be identical. And then this is a method, that is a display info, and it's returning or printing a statement on UI on the console, that is name, and it's a combination of first name and last name. Now let's understand the concept of object in the next slide, and you will understand how these things are used. In the previous slide, we have discussed about the concept of class, like what is a class and what are fields and what are method. Now let's discuss about the object. So what is an object in a C#? An object is a representative of a class and allocates memory to its class member. So if you want to use anything like a field or a method from a class, then in that case, you have to create an object of that class. An object is a real world entity having attributes like field and behavior a method. So for example, a student object. A student object can have an attribute like the first name and last name. A student can perform activities like attending a class and giving an exam. So these all things comes from the class student, and an object is a way to use those things. Let's understand this with the help of an example. So likewise in the previous slide, in this slide as well, we have created a new class as person, and again they have a class is having a method named display info, and it is having a two properties or two fields basically, that is a first name and a last name. Now let's understand how an object is created on that class. So this is our driver function, and you can see that we have created an object of that class using the new keyword. So again, an interview question Like, how can you create an object or class? The answer is an object can be created by using a new keyword on that particular class name. So in this particular line of code, what I'm doing is I'm creating an object of a person class, and I am passing the first name and last name as a parameter because that is required over here. So this is constructor, and while defining a constructor, a first name and last name is required. So that's why while creating an object of that class, these two things are required. We'll discuss constructor in detail, but as of now, you can simply say that if this thing is present, then you have to pass the parameter or the value of those two parameters while defining an object of a class. And in the next line, we are just calling a display info method of that particular person. So object is a very important entity in a class, and it represents or allocates the memory, and all the fields and method of a class is used by an object only. So this comes to an end of a class and object concept.